For me, it's really about starting those conversations. And, we often say, Trade Mud is there to start the conversation. TIACS is there to continue the conversation when you need something a little bit more deeper. So do encourage them to, even if it's just wearing your funky shirt on a Friday and posting it up on socials and just sharing the message, the more people we can get talking and having conversations, we can break down all these barriers around mental health.
So today on the Jim's podcast, the Jim's Mowing podcast, we've got a very special guest. It's our first guest from outside of the Jim's family. And you're not really outside the Jim's family, you're a part of it in regards to what you do. But Jason Banks is from TIACS. You're the CEO, co-CEO of TIACS, which is a fantastic organisation, and it's the mental health or the recommended mental health support that we recommend to all franchisees and franchisors within the Jim's group. So Jason, you want to just talk a bit about yourself and your role with TIACS and what you guys do?
Yeah, thanks for having us on the podcast today. As Joel said, I'm the co-CEO. I've been with TIACS just coming up to 2 years now. And TIACS, which is the acronym for this, is a conversation starter. We're an organisation that provides free mental health counselling, support to tradies, to truckies, to those working in rural areas, pretty much any blue-collar worker and those that care about them Australia-wide. What a journey it's been. TIACS has been going for just on 3.5 years now and have supported over 18,000 Australians with free counselling support. So for me, I came on board about 18 months into that journey, and the last 2 years has just felt like such a roller coaster in a good way, but just lots of awareness getting out there around our service, and that means that we can support more blue-collar workers around the country.
Jason, I love your service because I remember when I met Ed, you guys have a really good point of difference compared to the other ones, like the big brands like, Beyond Blue and these sorts of ones which tend to get thrown first all the time when it comes to this stuff. But do you want to just outline for franchisees and for people in general, what's the difference between, let's say, someone going to use a TIACS service as opposed to one of maybe the other big brands like a Lifeline or a Beyond Blue?
Yeah, great point. So those other brands that do an amazing job within the country, but they're very focused on crisis and are probably more, a lot of their marketing over time has probably steered them towards actually crisis support, where you're really getting to the point where maybe you're really struggling or having suicidal ideations and you reach out to Lifeline to get back on track. And it might be just one chat that you have with them. TIACS is a counselling service, not a support service. So we actually provide a free and confidential counselling service, which means that you actually engage with a professional counsellor. We give ongoing sessions, so it's not just a one-off chat. You actually get the same counsellor for all your sessions. So if you think about that, Lifeline and those other great organisations are sort of more focused on crisis, we're really focused on that early brief intervention. So, there's 4 reasons why someone would reach out to TIACS. One, we all need a tune-up. We might just need to get the brain just functioning a little bit better. We might be just going through just a few little niggles and we just want to get back on track. And think about us as being your personal trainer for your mental fitness. You might be struggling is the second one, that, you're probably starting to go into more challenging times and you can start to see the road ahead is not getting any better, then reach out to TIACS. The third one is you could be a support person of someone that's going through a challenging time and you don't know how to navigate them back on track to get them sort of either the support they need or just to get them opening up. Then call a TIACS and talk to one of the counsellors and they will give you some tips on how to be able to navigate your loved one, friend, employee even. I know you've got some great, amazing franchisors out there that have got people that are employed. They might go through a struggling time. Those guys, reach out to TIACS, even if you want that little bit. And the last one is we encourage people that haven't used a service, mental health service, just text TIACS, call TIACS, just understand what it's like, that it's not that bad. It's not hard. It's easy. And, the counsellors on the other end are just like a human talking to another human being. So they're the 4 reasons why we encourage people to reach out to TIACS.
Absolutely. We've got some cards with Jim. I don't know if we can see it there with the number made up, so we'll put that on our graphic, which is good. And we talk about it in training as well. And we still get questions about who to go for, but please, if you're a franchisee listening, TIACS, which is a link in the description, is a place to go. And how many people are in the team now, Jason?
Oh, God. We're growing. I think in the total TIACS team now, we're up to 15 or 16. We're forever recruiting. Definitely we've seen some growth over the last 12 months. And, the growth is good. I think, often people from a media perspective, when I do sort of more media mainstream interviews, they hear the numbers that are reaching out to TIACS and they go, you guys must be distraught. And we're like, no, not enough people have reached out to our service. That's the whole problem that, mental health within Australia probably has a bit of that sort of negative sort of side, and people don't feel willing to open up is because of what's being portrayed out there. And, often I hear Dan and Ed talk, our co-founders, about, when they went to set up Trademark and TIACS, that, mental health was being portrayed as a bus stop signage on the side of a signage on the side of a bus stop with a dimly lit room and some guy with his hands on his head bent over. And they're like, oh, but I've got mental health. I'm going through some challenges. I've gone through a tough time, but that's not me. I'm not sitting at nighttime in a dimly lit room. And I think we've all got mental health, and, we should respect our mental health as much as what we do our physical health.
100%. I think the process for you guys is really good as well, because generally the normal process is if you want to get those 10 referrals, the 10 sessions from the government or the compensate, the Medicare ones, you have to go to a doctor to get the referral. Then you have to go, and you might not be able to get in for 6 months or 3 months, which is a big problem. Then people get put off it. Whereas with you guys, they call, they text the service, and I think it's up to 8 sessions you can get if required. And I think it's just a fantastic gap. It's a completely different market for mental health for people to access.
Yeah, well, the two barriers we want to remove is the physical barrier. So as you say, you don't have to get in a car. You don't have to book an appointment to see a GP. You don't need a GP referral to access TIACS. The second one is the financial barrier. It's a free service. And, the only way that we can deliver our free service back into the community is like organisations like Jim's group that, jumped on board really pretty much right at the start when TIACS started and became an alliance partner. And, Jim and yourself, definitely driven by yourself, Joel, saw the vision that, here's another opportunity for you to be able to support your teams that are out there, working within the community every single day. And, we all know that we go through different challenges at different times, and it's a text call service. So there's no face-to-face, there's no videoing. And it could be as simple as someone just texting TIACS and going, hey, I'm struggling right now. Can somebody support me? And then all of a sudden, you're in contact with TIACS and you're on your way.
I think your service is fantastic. And if anyone's listening or had a bad experience maybe with one of the bigger ones or something like that, or they couldn't get a hold of them, I think you guys do a really good job. And the feedback, we don't ask for feedback about this stuff, but we have had people who have volunteered feedback, and this is not only from franchisors or franchisees, and said you guys have been fantastic. And we've had people use the full 8 sessions, and it's been a real big game changer for them. And those people would not have gone to the doctor to get a referral before. They would have just suffered in silence. So it's been a massive impact. And it's not just when you do it, because you guys provide a great report and you have like a pie chart of what people are calling for. So it's not just, let's say, depression or mental health challenges. It's a whole range of things, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the number one reason why a male will reach out to TIACS is relationships. That could be personal relationships, it could be family relationships, it could be work relationships as well. Definitely financial does pop up from time to time. And, for females that reach out, it's often the anxiety or depression that they might be struggling with. But I think one of the pleasing things for us is that, 70% of people that have reached out to TIACS have been males, which are traditionally, we probably have a bit of stoicism about us. We're probably being brought up in different generations where, we just bottle things up. To actually have more males reaching out to our service, it really shows the relatability that we actually have back into the blue collar industry.
I think it's great. It ties, and if you don't know what that shirt is, what Jason's got as part of Trademark, so I recommend everyone look at Trademark. We've been trying to do a Trademark shirt for a while. It's just like herding cats, unfortunately. So if you are listening as a franchisee or franchisor, ask your franchisor about it so we can get the group buy going and do it, because we want to do a Jim shirt for it. But I think it's a fantastic initiative. If you're not sure of it, go to Trademark, look it up, Funky Shirt Friday. It's fantastic. And I was going to say as well, you've been kind enough to give some time to some of our franchisee meetings, which I think's been great. What were some of the questions, or what were the things you were getting asked from franchisees on these meetings?
I think most of the questions that we get asked is, what's it like when I reach out? Who can use the service? Do I have to turn up for anywhere? Is it a video? All those barriers, I think, all the questions that were coming up were barriers that will prevent people from reaching out. And, I think we find that the biggest barrier is actually the person showing that strength and vulnerability. And I use strength and vulnerability in the same terminology there, because you are showing strength when you do open up, but you're also being vulnerable yourself to share with somebody that you don't know and you don't meet, that you haven't met before, what you're going through. But, I heard this sort of an apprentice that reached out to us and used our service. And I said, how'd you find, talking to a counsellor? And he said it was just free and easy. And it just felt like I was talking to my mate but we were just getting into some deeper conversation than I normally probably would with my mate. And I think, if we can break down that barrier that people show that strength and that vulnerability, and, there's nothing wrong with, sharing your story. There's nothing wrong with opening up, because you're going to be better for it in the end. And, we want everyone to be the best version of themselves when they turn up. And, we put it out to all the gyms, group that, if you guys want us to do a 25-minute Zoom session in one of your monthly meetings, reach out to, myself at TIACS. And, we've got a couple of guys now that we can jump on those calls and just share, the story about Trademark and TIACS, and just share to your franchisees that there's TIACS available for them.
100%. No, it's a great offer and we appreciate it. And I was going to say, as well, from talking with all the psychologists you do, I presume you talk to them a lot. What are some trends or maybe some things around mental health or that you see coming up? And maybe what are some, not solutions, but what are some things that you can maybe advise the franchisees maybe to look out for, or some advice from your perspective, just of hearing all these stories all the time and in working in what you do?
Yeah, so probably the first thing that we're hearing a lot of at the moment, and it's probably a word, it's called head noise. It's getting referenced a lot. I've just got a lot of head noise, which means that there's probably a lot of things that are going on within their lives, whether it's work, whether it's personal as well. So we're hearing a lot more of that sort of terminology around head noise. So when you reach out to one of the TIACS counselors, they'll sort of break down and go through, just talk a little bit more about what are you hearing, what are you feeling, what is that head noise, and then they will then give those clients some tips and therapeutic sort of strategies to be able to get them sort of back on track. But I think from a franchisor and a franchisee, when you've got people working for you, one of the things we get commonly asked is, I've noticed something different. And, often we know, if somebody turns up all bright and bubbly every day for, forever, and then all of a sudden over a week, they're a little bit down, they're a little bit secluded, they might not be as vibrant as what they probably have. That's really the time to be able to check in. And I think, for anybody out there that's got people working for them, or they got their peers, that regular check-in when, they might be just a little bit off really makes a big difference. And I know that the team get a few of those sort of questions around, I just don't know how to have that conversation. And often I think people, when we talk about mental health, they're worried about having a conversation with someone that may be having some challenging times, because they're worried about what they'll say. And we often say, hey, the whole thing about this is just starting a conversation, giving them the opportunity and a safe space to share their story, to open up. And then all you have to do is be one really good thing, and that is be a really good listener. And, then just have regular check-ins. And I think often we get really busy and we just don't get that opportunity to recheck in with people. So definitely just watching for signs of when somebody's out of character, often will probably steer down the path that they may be just going through a bit of a rough day.
Yeah, I think it's some great advice. And I think a lot of blokes especially want to fix things. You tell them a problem, they want to fix things. But I think the best bit of advice in those situations, from my experience, is just to listen and just hold your tongue. And you don't need to be an advisor, as you said, just be a leader listener, and make sure you can provide the resources for that they can contact, and they can better help the person. Because we get asked this bit from the franchisors, like, what do we do and stuff. And the franchisors, unfortunately, sometimes might have trouble with some franchisees in regards to this sort of stuff. And it's hard to know where to deal with as well. And same thing with franchisees. Franchisees might have a work, as you said, and they don't know what to deal with it. But, I'll show the card again, but make sure, if you are unsure, anyone listening, just get onto TIACS. And you guys are really good. We've reached out to you for things as well, and you guys always respond to us really quickly. And as I said, the feedback from the service has been fantastic from the group.
And, from a point of view, I've already mentioned it, to have gyms, group as one of our partners that supports us and has supported us from the start is humbling. And it means that we can then, as a non-for-profit organisation, can still give back into the community by providing a free counselling service to those that really do need it.
We need to do more money. I know, Jim, I need to get him to sort of double the thing and go up the sponsorship level. So if you are a franchisee listening, harass you on the email to do it.
And then send Jim an email from every one of you to say, hey, I think you guys need to give TIACS a little bit more.
Well, the reason why I love this organisation is because the dollar value that is contributed you can attribute that spend to this much time in hours provided from counselling, right? Whereas a lot of the other big ones, there's a lot of administration, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of spent on this, which is fine. But I just think with you guys, the money is so much more better spent in terms of actually providing a real service to the community. And it's a great story of what you guys have done. And I think it's amazing how the boys and yourself are building this thing. I think it's being built in the right way. And I think it's just, I hope you guys keep plugging along with it, because I think, even though it's 2 years or 3 years or however long it's been going, like, it'd be amazing to see where you guys are at 10 years' time with the trajectory it's going on.
Oh, definitely. We've got a vision in the next 5 years to be one of the major mental health counselling services in Australia. And we know that there's, over 4.5 million blue collar workers in Australia, and we've supported 18,000 of them. So we know there's a big runway ahead, but we're up for the challenge. And definitely I think you're right. I think the model that we have, it's really simple, it's easy, it's free. And that's often one thing that we get is, if it's free, it must be shit. And we're like, no, it's actually you're actually talking to a qualified mental health counsellor who's done a master's degree, that is talking with blue collar workers every day. So they understand the challenges that they're all going through, whether they're on the tools or, they're out on a farm or in rural areas. They just understand. And I think that's the relatability factor of it. And that we've got, two co-founders that were both chippies and, saw, through losing a loved one themselves through suicide, they actually said, no, we've got to do something about this and get back to the community.
Well, I think a great point to make for people is, if you've had a bad experience once, or not the best experience once, because people might have a call a service and expect it to be something, they don't get what they want, and they never go to it again, and they go, that doesn't work for me, and they've never tried again. So I will say, if you are listening and you've tried that before with someone else and you haven't got anywhere, don't discount TIACS, and it doesn't hurt to give it a go, because I think that might be the case sometimes, unfortunately, with people. And then when they try you guys, they get a whole lot of great value from it as well. But just from your experience, Jason, you always put in your emails about a story or two that you guys have helped. You maybe want to share a story or two about this service and the impact it's had with someone.
Yeah, the one that I'm going to talk about is young Maxie. I use him a little bit. He was an apprentice, 17-year-old first-year carpentry apprentice. Lost his old man, not to suicide, but to other medical conditions about 9 months earlier before he reached out to TIACS. And he was at a point where he was angry with himself. He felt angry with the world, and his mates and everybody kept on saying to him, you need to reach out to somebody. You need to get the support. And, he couldn't afford external counselling, because it's not cheap. He was a trademark wearer of one of their shirts, and somebody said, why don't you just reach out to TIACS? So he reached out to TIACS and he did his full sessions with one of our counsellors, and we're at an expo last year, and Dan and Ed were there, and this young guy, Maxie, walked up and just basically gave these guys a hug, and they were just sort of like shocked. And Dan and Edward started getting into conversation with him, and Maxie just turned around and said, mate, I just want to say thank you. What TIACS has done for me has saved my life, because I was in a really dark place, and, I couldn't afford counselling. I didn't know where to go to. And we ended up sharing the story through socials, and actually we got this comment from pretty much straight away after the post went up, and it was Maxie's mum. And she talks about, that Maxie reached out. But the one thing that always gets me is the comment that she left at the bottom, and is that thank you because you rescued my son. I think that's the really impact, the data that I've mentioned today and all that sort of stuff, and we can show the impact that we're having direct is great for transparency and back to donors, that sort of thing. But the real impact is Maxie's story, and we've got lots of those stories out there. And, if you are going through a time, and Maxie talks around, he's just so glad that he did reach out when he did. It took a lot, but he's a real advocate for it now. And now that he's experienced what it's like to actually get counselling or get the help that he needs, he's 17 years of age. He's got a lot of life to go through. He's going to be more probably attuned, and probably more going to be open to actually reaching out to getting support as he goes through his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, his 50s, when he really goes through probably some of life's bigger challenges. But he's going to just be going, well, I might just go get some counselling. And it just becomes the norm. And I think that's what the opportunity that we've got to change in this country is, that we're just going to create it, that it's just the norm, that when I'm going through some tough times, I can reach out.
I find it weird because I interview a lot of American guests on the podcast, and the concept of therapy is so normal. Like, it's in The Simpsons, or it's in the 2.5 Men sitcom. It's just a really light thing where it's standard for children or people to get therapy in general. Whereas in Australia, as you said, it's still a very stigmatized thing. And even though there's a lot of mental health awareness going around, that surface level awareness, it doesn't mean action or anything underneath. And you alluded to a point which is really sad, was that the gentleman couldn't afford the counselling fee. It's a lot of money, it might be $160 after the Medicare rebate, which is still a lot. And psychologists can't work for free, and I understand that, but it's still a very large cost, $160, $180 depending after the rebate even, for people to go every week or 2 weeks. It's hell of a lot of money, which is why it's even way more important for services like yours to get the support that it needs. And just out of interest, do you guys get any government support, or is that a plan to sort of go that way, or no?
No, we get no government support. And
Wow.
to be honest, for us, our model at the moment is really focused around being long-term and sustainable. Our whole thing is to be funded by the industry for the industry. So, like organizations like you guys, you're in the industry, but you're actually giving back to the industry through your funding and through TIACS. So for us, it's not on our radar. And I get that asked question a lot, actually. And our answer back is that we want to be long-term sustainable. We're not just here for 1 or 2 years. We want to be here for, generations to come. When the only way that you can be sustainable really is to have a funding model that, is funded by the industry for the industry. The last 12 months, we've seen a massive sweep of support from the community that are doing fundraising events for us, and where it could be the charity beneficiary of their gala ball or their the Gippy Music Muster that we had recently last year, and or conferences. So we're starting to get a bit of a sweep of funding that's coming through that, which is really, really good. And that just gives us another way where we don't have to put costs in to run events. Other organisations are running the events, so that we can still keep this low-cost model of actually then giving back and putting more councils onto the support. As to you say, the bigger you get all this infrastructure in place. We have a very, very low infrastructure when it comes to from leadership, and we want to keep it that way because we want to be able to put that funding into counselling support.
Absolutely. I'll make it clear for everyone as well, if you don't know, Trademark, which is the shirt you're wearing, which is that workwear brand, which is a social enterprise. So that part of those profits go directly to fund this, which is why it exists, that from what I get from Ed and Dan. And so if you want to buy something that's ethically sourced as well, so the whole supply chain, from what I know, is ethically sourced. It's not made in some place in China and they're paying them. It's all ethically sourced. I think it's supporting is it in Vietnam? It supports people who've been rescued or something in Vietnam. Yep. The whole chain packed by ethical. They give disability people jobs here. The whole thing is ethical. Like, it's a social enterprise from start to finish. Whereas, so if you're listening to this or you're a franchisee and you actually want to buy something that you're going to use, plus have it actually go back to something that's good, get on board Trademark. It is a plug for Trademark directly, because I think social enterprises like this are the way of the future, and it's amazing what you guys do. And just people, if you're going to shop for workwear, please go to Trademark, just because of what you guys do.
Yeah, 50% of the profits go directly into TIACS, but I think also, we get lots of people reaching out to us and saying, hey, I just want to be an ambassador for TIACS. We go, buy a Trademark shirt. Because when you do wear one of these shirts, they do start conversations, and that's what it's all about. Underneath the left breast pocket of all the shirts is a QR code. So if you're out and about and someone that's struggling, you just scan that and they get straight through to the TIACS number.
That's amazing.
And they're really, for me, it's really about starting those conversations. And, we often say, Trademark is there to start the conversation. TIACS is there to continue the conversation when you need something a little bit more deeper. So do encourage them to, even if it's just wearing your funky shirt on a Friday and, posting it up on socials and just sharing the message. The more people we can get talking and having conversations, we can break down all these barriers around mental health.
If you are a franchisee or franchisor listening, we will make it part of the uniform. So don't worry about being out of uniform or anything. You can wear it if you would like. So please don't let that put you off buying one to support it as well. And you can actually get your gym's logo put on it from our uniform people. But as I said, I want to do a shirt with this. So hopefully people can email Jim and say we can do a bulk buy. I think I need to bulk buy 500 or something. So
350, I think
350. 350 committed. So we need to get 350 committed to do a Jim's one, which will be like a little Jim's logo and stuff. So we need to get that done. But Jason, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything you want to say, mate? Well, I haven't asked you that I should ask you about TIACS before we wrap up today?
No, I just think just think about that strength and vulnerability. It's okay to open up. It's okay to share your story. And, when you do put on one of these shirts, you are making something invisible, impossible to ignore. And that's what we really are, our focus. And again, thanks to the Gyms team. And that offer's there if you want to reach out and, for us to chat about TIACS and what we do and how we can support more of the Gyms Group team, please reach out to us.
I appreciate that. And that offer again is for franchisors. If you want to do that, we'll put Jason's details in the notes. I know franchisors have had you on, and the feedback we've had has been great, and the guys found it really helpful and girls found it really helpful. So thank you very much for your time, Jason. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, John. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the episode of the Gyms podcast. If you want to learn more about the Gyms Group, head to gyms.net or call us on 131 546 Australia or 0800 454 654 New Zealand. And if you did like the episode as well, please make sure you leave a review or a comment or a thumbs up or a comment on the video as well. We appreciate your support. And until next episode, we hope you have a great week.